Yo no sé qué dije. By the punches.
Okay. The February 7th Board of Education meeting is now called to order. Please rise for the invocation. O God, we pray to administer that which is just in all educational policies, being ever mindful of your guidance, stir us to action with love, wisdom, and understanding. The pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Item 2.03 is approval of the minutes. Do I have any?
So moved.
Second.
So are there any corrections or additions to the minutes? Okay, all those in favor? All right. Item 2.04 is establish agenda order, and the agenda stands. Item 2.05 is board recognitions, and we have a presentation.
Good morning, President Hummer, Vice President Gilliland, members of the Board of Education, and Dr. Alato. I'm Kathy Lane, Director of Alternative Education, and I have the pleasure of presenting this morning's recognition. Before I begin, I'd like to ask the members of the board and Dr. Alato to please come down front. The Phoenix Academy is both a PBIS and a Kids at Hope school. As you may be aware, Kids at Hope provides a guiding philosophy for a student-centered school culture, while PBIS provides the framework for interventions and supports our students so often need. The Phoenix Academy's vision certainly speaks to these values, and the school accesses all available resources and supports to ensure that every student meets with academic success, no exceptions. The Kids at Hope philosophy is designed to inspire, empower, and transform our schools by creating an environment and culture where all children experience success, no exceptions. It is the Phoenix Academy's mission that every child is afforded the belief, guidance, and encouragement that creates a sense of hope and optimism, supported by a course of action needed to experience success. Today's recognition is a classic example of how the staff of the Phoenix Academy inspires, empowers, and transforms the lives of children every day. The Phoenix Academy is unique in that it is Anne Arundel County Public Schools, one of very few K-12 schools with 5-year-olds and 21-year-olds attending school under the same roof. This unique configuration affords staff and students not only many unique challenges, but also myriad amazing opportunities. One example of such an opportunity occurred when Jacob Kinzer, a junior at the Phoenix Academy, wrote a rap song inspired by the Kids at Hope pledge that the students recite every morning. Jacob turned the pledge into an original rap song in Mr. Lane's music class and then taught the rap to Miss Couliard's kindergarten through third grade students. We've taken the liberty of adding some photos to the soundtrack, so take a look and listen.
No exceptions. So fresh like zest, I'm made of soap.
I'm talented and capable of success. Beat the chest, beat the chest, beat the chest.
I have dreams for the future. I rise to reach those goals and dreams. Every day's got a lot to say. All you haters, out of my way.
All children are capable of success.
It's worth it to be the best.
Yes!
Stay in class, learn your lessons.
No exceptions!
No exceptions. I am a kid at hope.
Yes!
No exceptions. No exceptions.
No exceptions! Yes!
I am a kid at hope. No exceptions.
Yes! No exceptions!
No
No
exceptions.
exceptions!
Jacob was recognized for his original song and awarded a Chromebook at the recent Martin Luther King Jr. Revitalizing the Dream celebration, sponsored by the Healthcare and Life Science Division of Anne Arundel Medical Center and the Dell Corporation. As Jacob and others involved come forward, please join me in thanking them for reminding us that all means all and that every child is capable of success, no exceptions.
We're going to have everybody just right in front of us.
Need you for a picture. Come on in. Yeah. Come on in. Right here. Get you up close. Good job. Yeah, you come right here. Take a step back.
All the way back.
Oh, because you're taller than the rest of us.
Just get nice and straight in here. And we have a little bit of a, okay, you just make sure we see everybody. Can you fill up this space here and then we'll get somewhere there? Can I see Miss Mary there? Okay. I can see everybody. Okay. There we go. Okay, guys, we'll take a couple pictures. Just looking this way and big smiles, please.
Cheese!
Get a couple more of you guys while you're there. Keep looking this way. All right, guys, thank you.
If you haven't ever been to the Phoenix Academy, it is an amazing place, and you walk in there and you just feel the energy and the great environment they have there. So that was awesome. Item 2.07 is Educator of the Month, Ms. Cole.
February is a very special month in the world of education. As this week, February 5th through 9th, we celebrate National School Counseling Week, and this year's theme is helping students reach the stars. And speaking of stars, the board would like to recognize a real star in ACPS world of counseling, Mr. John Heiser. school counselor at Southern Middle School. John Heiser has played a tremendous role as a leader in Southern Middle School, as well in the lives of its students. His role affords him the opportunity to assist and mold today's youth on academic, personal, social, and emotional levels. His dedication to the school allows him to build an effective and positive rapport, not only with his students, but with staff members as well. While Mr. Heiser has helped to coordinate various fundraisers for family and needs within the community, the most impressive initiative he has piloted at Southern Middle School is the Peer Meditation Program. The program ensures that students can resolve potential conflicts in a safe, supportive environment, rather than the classroom, hallways, or cafeteria. Mr. Heiser recruits and trains about 15 to 20 eighth graders as peer meditators each year to help other students resolve conflicts and explore options on how to move forward in a respectful manner. There have been great success with the peer meditation program over the years, and it is truly due to the time, effort, and dedication of John Heiser. Mr. Heiser utilizes his importance counseling strategies on a daily basis with students, parents, and staff members, including active listening, empathy, passion, conflicts, resolution, and collaboration. Due to his credibility and high degree of professionalism, he has been nominated and selected on several occasions of Employee of the Week by students and staff. His caring and humorous nature truly helps to ensure the Southern Middle fosters a positive, safe, and supportive environment for students to learn. Working at Southern for 25 years, Mr. Heiser has a true sense of what it means to be a Southern Bulldog in South County communities. No matter what grade, students will get to know him and all of his hilarious Heiserisms, from reciting John Cena quotes like "You can't see me" to screaming "holla" down the hallway. He can put a smile on any student or staff member's face. His positivity is infectious. John Heiser, a wonderful and vital resource of your students, especially for those who may not have strong family support at home. You are a motivating counselor as you assist and encourage students to reach their full potential, no matter what obstacles may stand in their way. So for these reasons and more, the Board of Education congratulates you on being selected Educator of the Month for February, National Counseling Month 2018. Congratulations.
Trick you to get here today?
I was going to interview graduate school panels for graduate school, becoming counselors in the future, but I was a little on to them a little bit. Stories didn't jive too well, but it's all good. It's all good.
And who came here to support you today?
Let's see, two great counselors, Miss Martz and Olivia, perfect. Secretary in the middle, Miss Airy. My mom, my sister, and my uncle. And somebody named Mr. Buckley, I don't know. I just got rated yesterday, so I'm good to go. Rating's done, it's all over.
I would like to congratulate you with your certificate.
Thank you.
And this bell.
Holla. That's it, I need more from you, that's it.
Thank you. And I'd like you to stay after so that we can take pictures later on.
Will do.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much.
That would have been handover, yeah.
Yep. So I'm going to back up a minute because I skipped one. Item 2.06 is school and community highlights. Is anyone from the board? Ms. Korbelak.
A few of us had the chance to go to a national conference over the weekend on equity and advocacy that happened to be in DC, so it was just down the street. But I know at some point during that Saturday session, one of the national presenters said all means all. So our slogan is catching, and we're very proud to have the equity program that we have at AACPS.
Ms. Nally.
Just a quick shout out to John Barzell, principal at Deal. Dr. Alato and I visited Deal and saw all the wonderful things going on at that school, and it was especially great for me to see John. His first assignment as administrator was assistant principal at Davidsonville with me, so glad to see his successes. Thanks, John.
Last Friday, Dr. Alato and I presented before the Anne Arundel County delegation, state delegation, to share some legislative priorities and kind of a state of the schools address. And it was great to be a part of that and educating and collaborating with our state officials. So that went well. And then yesterday, as part of the advocacy symposium, I spent the day on the Hill with other school board members from around the state visiting our House of Representatives and senators. And we had great one-on-ones with several of the elected officials as well as their staff people to share priorities that we have on the federal level for education. So it was a great day of democracy in action. So, all right, now item 2.08, Employee of the Month, Ms. Korbelak.
Thank you. Today we recognize an employee in our school system who is all about problem solving and taking preventative action so that his building can be in top condition at all times. Brian Brenneman, Chief Custodian at Piney Orchard Elementary School, has an outstanding work ethic and takes a lot of pride in the school and its appearance. He also cares about the teachers' needs and goes above and beyond to make sure they have what they need to be happy. When the building has issues with air conditioning, Mr. Brenneman makes sure teachers and students are comfortable in their classrooms by voluntarily bringing in fans and dehumidifiers. He takes the initiative in seeking out problems in the building without the request of teachers and staff. He anticipates possible problems and takes preventative actions to avoid them. Mr. Brenneman is willing to help with any concern and is persistent in finding a solution in a very timely manner. When a framed piece of art was donated to the school, he had it hanging in the front foyer within an hour. Now that's timely. Brian Brenneman is a familiar and friendly face to everyone in the Piney Orchard family. Just his presence in the building makes the children feel safe and welcome in the school. He demonstrates that he cares about the teachers and staff and students, which promotes a positive learning and work environment for all involved. His sense of humor has a way of boosting a sense of morale in the school. He understands teachers' frustrations at times and always offers a smile and joke to lighten the situation. Mr. Brenneman has a gregarious personality. Even though you only have to meet him once to become his friend, he still addresses all staff in a professional manner. At times, he is at the school prior to or long after his duty hours, even on weekends. He is always willing to complete a request, no matter how mundane. From making sure the school is running properly to catching a spider for a frightened teacher, he will get the job done and always keep a smile. Brian Brenneman, you take the time to talk to all stakeholders, making problem solving a collaborative effort. In addition to staff members appreciating your work, parents have also voiced their appreciation over the cleanliness of the building and the attention to detail with the maintenance of the school building. The high expectations you have for yourself and for your crew is very apparent. So for these reasons and more, the Board of Education congratulates you on being chosen as Employee of the Month for February 2018. Congratulations, and please join me up front.
Some computer training.
Was they ready to come to the board meeting before you got trained?
Yeah, I'm assuming.
So tell us what just walked in.
Let's see, my wonderful girlfriend on the right, my son, my amazing principal, and Miss Knauer, my troubled teacher. She's the one that, yeah. She's amazing. Mom and Dad, and
sister and brother-in-law.
Great. Well, we have a certificate for you and a bell that you can carry or call attention to whatever you need to.
Very good.
And we'll take some pictures after the brief break.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Item 2.09 is Volunteer of the Month. Mr. Reinhardt.
Many of us who serve on the Board of Education are parents and or teachers. We know firsthand what years of research consistently conclude about parent involvement in their children's schools. Engaged parents are more supportive of the school goals, their children achieve more academic success, and teachers benefit with more time for individual students and lesson planning. Parent volunteers have real and lasting impact on the entire school community. Today we honor one of those valuable parent volunteers who has spent the past 15 plus years working to make a real and lasting impact on AACPS schools. Mary Rose Hbcus has been a consistent and dependable volunteer for Anne Arundel County Public Schools, and schools, staff, and students at all grade levels have benefited from her positive influence. Lisa Shore says, Mrs. Hbcus became an AACPS volunteer when her children attended South Shore Elementary 15 years ago. She took on leadership roles on the PTA and recruited many parents to volunteer at the school. As Mrs. Hbcus's children grew and moved on to new schools, she continued to volunteer tirelessly at those schools as well, becoming PTA president at OMMS. Carolyn Burton Page, who was principal at Old Mill Middle School South while Mrs. Hbcus was PTA president there, said Mrs. Hbcus was a huge supporter and advocate and sought to recruit others to support the school. She also remarked that Mrs. Hbcus communicated effectively with the staff and school community, demonstrated involvement by representing and promoting PTSA at most school functions, and supported school community-based activities. While Mrs. Hbcus was PTA president, the OMMS PTA received the Anne Arundel County Council of PTA Award of Excellence. Mrs. Hbcus has organized countless activities for the students and staff of South Shore Elementary, Old Mill Middle School South, Old Mill High School, and North County High School. She has worked tirelessly to engage community volunteers, establish lines of communication between school staff and the community, advocate for families and students, and build positive relationships between families and their schools. Among her significant contributions is her dedication to the steel drum band at Old Mill High School. Michael Miller, the music department chair, says, she diligently promotes the band so that the entire Old Mill community can take pride in the accomplishments of this unique musical group of students. Mrs. Hbcus's involvement with the steel drum band has encouraged the students as to the worth of their diligent practice and sacrifice of time. Mrs. Hbcus is also an advocate for the faculty of the schools she serves. Dr. Kevin Hamlin, former principal at Old Mill High, says she supports the faculty through various appreciation events. As Katie Feuerherd, current principal at Southern High School, says, Mary Rose was always assisting where needed, including luncheons for staff, manning the PTSA table at evening events, and celebrating teachers. Whenever the school had need for a specific task, she immediately reached out to her contacts for support. So for all these and all the reasons that were mentioned, the Board of Education is proud to award this Volunteer of the Month. Oh, there was a back. Mary Rose Hbcus, I was gonna wing it. Mary Rose Hbcus, we truly thank you for 15 plus years of dedicated service to our community. Would you please come forward? With great appreciation, I would like to present this Volunteer of the Month certificate and bell to you. So Why don't you tell us about who came?
Let's see. What a trick. This was amazing. Well, Stacy got me here under pretenses that we were honoring Miss Carolyn Burton Page. So, and I thought, oh my, here she comes. We're going to ruin the surprise. Well, my husband is here. Good job tricking me. My daughter came from college. She's at the University of Maryland, Kimberly.
Oh, it's a long commute. That's
Well, yeah. And Wanda Kendig, our former PTSA president at Old Mill High School. And my good friend Julia Donnelly. Thank you. Wow.
All right. Well, now we have an additional instrument for the steel drum band now.
Awesome.
And we have a certificate suitable for framing.
Oh, all right. Great. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Congratulations.
You're going to wing them all.
Tell her what she's won.
We have some lovely party.
Item 2.10 is the PTA report. You got a good follow-up here, Ms. Holler.
I am telling you, I feel horrible that I missed last month as well because another one of our PTA leaders got recognized. And I would like to say that I love that our PTA is working so hard and making an impact in the community that it's getting recognized. And I hope they continue and see that all the work that they're doing is wonderful in our community. So with that said, I do want to say that we are looking for leaders on our end. We would like to see if any of these wonderful leaders that are making a change in their community can come and make a bigger change and join our board, as we always need a lot of hands to continue to spread the message and give each other's back and make sure that we keep this movement of helping our school and students go forward. I would also like to do a couple of dates. February 13th, we have our board meeting here at 5:30. It's just a general board meeting. Everybody's invited. We talk about some things, and of course, any PTA or PTSA that feels they need to come talk to us, they're more than welcome to come to our meeting or email or call me. I am always here when I can, and I'm available. Founders Day is April 20th. This is our big celebration for all our PTAs to say thank you for all the wonderful work they've been doing and they keep doing. We want to recognize them for everything they do, so we want to throw them a party. And on something earlier, actually I missed, was February 8th. Our Maryland PTA is having a night in Annapolis from 6 to 8 p.m. that they're going to kind of have all the Maryland PTA groups come together and talk to the state level about things that are going on in their community. So this is a great time for our local PTAs to come and speak and see and kind of get to know people and how to make their community more predominant in the issues they have. With that said, I can't say enough thank you for recognizing the PTA. I know these parents, because I've been there, I am one, that we come when we can and we do everything we can with our heart, and our time is very valuable for us to give to the community. So thank you for recognizing us. And I hope to see you next month and not miss another one of our PTA leaders. Have a wonderful day. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 2.11 is CAC report.
Good morning. I am Kelly Purnell, the Vice Chair of CAC. Our big news this morning is that we have a Facebook page, a CAC Facebook page that's active and live and running. All of the CAC representatives now have CAC-specific emails that will stay consistent year to year, regardless of who the representative is. So we are working now on publicizing our page. We look forward to utilizing that to disseminate information to our clusters. And of course, if you're on Facebook, you can find us and like us and help us. We had a delayed meeting in January due to the weather, but we did have our annual presentation from Matt Stansky at the end of January, and it's always so helpful and informative, and we're working on getting that information out to our clusters. We continue to work in our subcommittees, and we hope to have further updates next month. We are finalizing speakers for the remainder of the year. Certainly, if the board has a particular area of interest or suggested speaker, you can let us know. Right now on the table are representatives from special education and the Office of Equity. So we look forward to seeing you next month.
Thank you. All right. Item 2.12 is a presentation, a staff presentation on Start the Adventure in Reading.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. My name is Doug Smith. Could you put our next slide up, please? We are here to talk about Start the Adventure in Reading. This is a volunteer program. We have over 160 tutors that go into the Anne Arundel County schools after the school day and tutor some of the most wonderful second graders you'd ever want to meet. I serve as the board chair. I also have the honor to put that hat on right about now to be Cat in the Hat at a number of our schools. This is a wonderful program. I'd like you to hear from the people that actually make it happen. We'll start with our executive director, Linda Barber. Linda?
Good morning. I am Linda Barber, the executive director of STARE, Start the Adventure in Reading. STARE does one thing, read. Our mission is to tutor, next slide please, second graders referred by their teachers who are reading below grade level and get them to grade level or above by the end of the school year. Why? Because once you reach third grade, you read to learn. And if you can't read well, your path is a slippery slope with a downward trajectory towards dropping out of high school and worse. STARE works after school in partnership right now with 10 schools, 7 elementary schools, and 3 community centers supported by 3 schools in Anne Arundel County. We are tutoring 78 amazing students this year. STARE tutors, sorry, I'm really nervous. STARE tutors read with and to their students. They work on fluency, comprehension, and accuracy using an Educator written and approved curriculum. Our students come to us afraid to read because they may have been laughed at or concerned about how they read. So by year end, we have them shouting, "Let me read. I want to read. Let me read. I want to be the Cat in the Hat." STARE tutors work for 1 hour, twice a week, with their students, same tutor or set of tutors, matched with the same students all year long. A relationship is built and trust is given. Last year, STARE volunteers gave 5,265 hours of tutoring. Slide, please. We read 2,828 books, and this slide shows Heather at Severn Elementary being presented with a scroll at Christmas that showed all of the books that the children, 7 of them at Severn Elementary, had read from October through Christmas break. And she cried, and so did I. Next slide, please. So some other facts. STARE gave away 2,000 take-home books to build home libraries for students because many of our students do not have books in their homes. 90% of our budget goes directly to our students in the form of books and materials and tutoring hours. STARE has graduated 339 students in the last 12 years. A good number return to read to the new crop of STARE students. Our graduates talk to their tutors and tell them about their successes. This is so important to us to see our students come back to visit us and tell us how they are doing in school. STARE is a safe place. All tutors are background checked. All coordinators are fingerprinted. We care about the safety of STARE students, so all tutors must attend yearly training and pass background checks. And twice a year, we have tutor workshops where educators come and talk to our students, talk to our tutors about techniques they can use with our students. We just had a very, very successful tutor workshop, which was presented by Lindsay O'Keefe, about how you move letters around to make words. And the tutors loved it because it's something solid that they can work with. And I was at Robinwood Center yesterday, and that was being used. In May, we have a graduation party at each site, and you are all invited. And each student receives a photo book, and I think you have some of those up on the podium. Every child receives a hardback copy. They find it very cool because they are in a book. You know all those pictures you take on your phones? Where do they go? On your phone, right? So this is what they see. At the event, that students come and read to their parents and other relatives to hear about how much fun they have had at STAIR, and also to show their newfound reading skills. So summer reading loss is a real reality. We're seeing this year after the very long summer. So we play a very small part in trying to help that by running a week-long summer camp in conjunction with the Housing Authority, City of Annapolis. Last year, for the past 2 years, we've worked the camp at Robinwood, and this year we'll have a second camp at Eastport Community Center. The kids are grouped by age and grades. They perform a play a day, no memorization, they read. At the culmination of the week, there's a production for parents to be invited to, and the children receive their applause. So, we build on the work done by reading specialists, teachers, and principals who give us advice and share space. And those people work hard many hours a day to create a place where children can learn. We are very appreciative of all the help we receive from all of our teachers and principals, and principally the board, who supports getting kids reading well by the end of second grade. So how can you help? Come and visit our sites, read to our and your students, and tell your friends who are looking for a chance to change the life of a child, tell them to check out STAIR. Thank you. We love our children. They are our passion. Thank you. I'd like to introduce Barbara Pratt, one of our tutors from Robinwood.
Hey, good morning. I'm one of the 160 tutors that Linda mentioned earlier. I've been involved with the program since January of 2014. I got involved because I love books, I love to read, and here was a chance to open children's worlds to what they can see through books. So I went through the training, as Linda described it. I studied the lesson plans. I was given guidance on how to structure a lesson and how to deal with behavior issues. And I walked into my first session totally intimidated. I just felt this huge responsibility that it was up to me to get this child to second grade reading level, or they would be condemned to a life of unemployment and poverty from here on out. It was a huge weight to bear. Fortunately, that feeling passed, helped tremendously by the other tutors, my site coordinator, and my student, who was an old hand at STAIR by the time I joined him in January. And I would be remiss if I did not note with gratitude the support the second grade teachers and reading specialists at Hillsmere have provided. They even met with all the Robinwood tutors during the last parent conference day so we could exchange observations and they could give us suggestions as to how we could better support our students. One word describes the STAIR environment for me, and that word is happy. The kids get off the bus and run to join us. They are generally chattering excitedly and sharing with us the highlights and sometimes the lowlights of their day at school. As the Hillsmere staff has mentioned to me on several occasions, they're always asking if they get to go to STAIR today. A 1-hour STAIR session is based on a professionally developed lesson plan. But that technicality aside, and leaving aside for the moment that we start with a snack and we end with a game, all of which are important to the kids, I believe the primary reason that the kids enjoy STARE and that the kids make progress in STARE is because it's one-on-one. In addition to the fact that each child is getting individual attention from a caring adult twice a week, one-on-one tutoring means that no child is behind. We meet them where we are, we meet them where they are in their reading skills and go from there. We can focus on books of interest to them and spend time on areas that they are working to master. We can match the rhythm of a session to the needs of one particular child, and these are luxuries that are not available to teachers with a classroom full of kids. Working with these children inevitably gives one glimpses into their lives. Kids who never mention their dads, those who reference their aunt at every turn, kids who've mentioned siblings who live elsewhere, and those who list all 6 of them on their All About Me page. Kids who taste blueberries and even bananas for the first time. We hear stories from school. From one student, I found a toad while I was waiting for the school bus, and I put it in my pocket and I took it to school. I let it out to show some of the other kids, and it got loose in the lunchroom. But it's okay because no adult saw. We get pearls of wisdom from a little girl who ate her snack in reverse preference order, because my grandma says if you eat all your favorites first, you end up with just green beans on your plate. We celebrate the successes of our students. Jordan, who is way behind in reading and in special ed, found his voice in poetry, which he both read and wrote. Duke, who was extremely reluctant to read aloud even with just his tutor present, came back to STARE the following year specifically so he could read to a younger child. And we can be wowed by our students. Eva responded to a classmate's hesitant reading aloud of a story he wrote by leading the applause for him and for all the students who followed. Darnez, who when asked to alphabetize his list of colors, first put them in rainbow order. And Marcus, who can't verbalize answers easily, but shows that he understands the words he reads by writing cry with a single tear hanging off the Y, and the letters of float gently bobbing on the surface of a pond. I got into STARE because it was about reading and books, but I stay in STARE because of the kids. Thank you.
We'd like Mr. Dillard to please come up and share his perspective as a principal.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Andre Dillard, and I have the privilege of being the principal of Georgetown East Elementary School, the best elementary school in and around the county. Don't anybody tell you differently. Okay. So, Georgetown East is a Kids at Hope school, and Ms. Lane talked a little bit about Kids at Hope. Part of the program of Kids at Hope is there are 4 pillars, or 4 ACEs, I should say. And one of those ACEs is other caring adults, adults other than their parents. So Georgetown East is very fortunate to have the STARE movement, because STARE is not a program. It's a movement. It's about the people who are moving and making a change. So the STARE movement is at Georgetown East, and we could not be more excited about that. This movement, they've talked a lot about the program. And the program is very important, or the movement, I should say, is very important. It's touching some of our struggling second graders. It's building their confidence. It's building their fluency, their comprehension, all those things. But it's really about building their confidence, but it's also about relationships. And these individuals within this STARE movement, they build relationships with our students. They do things that is almost impossible. And when I think about programs that come, especially after school programs, a lot of our kids, when the school day is done, they want to leave. They want to go home. When it comes to STARE, they love being there. They absolutely love it. We have students that at the end of the day, or maybe the second half of the day, they're struggling. They're having some struggles, something's going on, and they might be upset. When they get to STARE, it's completely different. They have done a 180, and they are just so excited to be there. These individuals, they breathe life into our children. And it's not just about them building their reading comprehension, their fluency. It's about breathing this life and making our children feel like they have self-worth and that they are important. Just yesterday, I was talking with my leadership team, some of the leaders within my building, and we were talking about qualities that make a good educator. We talked about all these different things and ways that we can try to support some of our teachers who aren't as sound as some of our other teachers. And we talked about these qualities and how we can provide all these PDs, we can provide trainings, we can send them to different schools to see different people. But then we talked about these innate qualities that people have, that good educators have. And they're qualities that you cannot teach. They're qualities that you either have or you don't have. And when I think about the individuals within STAIR, they all have these qualities that you just can't teach. They have these qualities of just wanting to be with children, support them, to learn about them, and not just about what's going on in school, but their lives outside of school, which is very important, because that's where you can bridge that gap and you can build those relationships. So we talked about these innate qualities, and the cool thing about the STAIR movement and the leadership is when they find tutors that have the same mindset. They find tutors that not only want to help children be successful, but they find tutors that can build relationships, that care about kids, that want to hear about what's going on in their lives, beyond reading. It goes beyond reading. This STAIR movement is so important, it's so powerful, and I am truly honored, and it's such a privilege to stand here, to be asked to talk about STAIR. I know they could have chosen so many people, but they chose me, and I'm very honored by that privilege. So just like Ms. Barber said, Mr. Smith said, please come out and visit the STAIR locations. Talk to the individuals, but more importantly, talk to the students. We had a student last year. He was in STAIR 2 years ago. He came back. He wanted to come back last year, and he wanted to come back because of those relationships, and he wanted to come back because it was so powerful, and he just wanted to be around those individuals one more year. And this is a student who, after school, he wants to go home normally. He wants to go play football. He's rough and tough, but he wanted to come and take part in STAIR for a second year, which is so, so, so very powerful. So again, I would encourage all of you to come out, visit the sites, and everyone to support this movement. The African proverb says that it takes a village to raise a child. They are part of our village. Thank you.
So, last year, our 80 students began STAIR with only 9% of them reading at second grade level. By the end of STAIR, 75% of our students were reading at grade level or above. STAIR can't take all the credit because there are lots of educators out there working very hard every day. But the atmosphere we provide and the stuff that we give to the kids 2 hours a week, every week from October through May, makes that happen. And next slide, please. You can help us in several ways. You can volunteer 1 or 2 days a week. It's after school, so plenty of time. We always are looking for donors. We take jewels, cash, stocks, bonds, checks. And please come and join us for STAIR celebrations. The children love to read to you. They love to see your faces, and they love to show you how well they are doing in their lives. So thank you very much for letting us present to you. The photo books are on the dais. Please look through. Those are our students. They're your students too. Thank you.
Let me just close by saying we couldn't do this without the great partnership we have with the Anne Arundel County Public Schools. We get so much help, and you'll notice on the report that you all have, a very famous guy gave us a really nice quote. So he's on the cover. But we're pleased to be a part of all this. Thank you for your support.
Thank you. That is just amazing. That's awesome. So we'll now take a brief break to have some pictures in the lobby. So would our volunteer or people of the month, please go on out to get your picture taken. All right, we're going to start back up. Where's my card? Okay, next will be our public comment. Anyone wishing to speak on an item not on today's agenda may offer testimony during this public comment portion of the meeting. Speakers are allotted 3 minutes each and may not allocate their time to others. A tone will sound when time has expired. The board asks that comments remain civil and appropriate for the various audiences that may be watching or viewing this meeting. Student-specific and personnel matters are confidential and cannot be discussed in this forum. It is not the board's general practice to engage in question and answer session with speakers. For the record, please give your name before speaking, and handouts should be given to the board assistants. Lisa Van Buskirk.
Good morning, Board of Education. Dr. Alato, Lisa Van Buskirk, representing Start School Later, Anne Arundel County. I'm here to observe a few anniversaries. Firstly, the third anniversary, that was February 2nd, of the third anniversary of the passing of County Council Resolution 6-15 on February 2nd, which was unanimously approved by all council members and recommended that this Board of Education and healthy high school hours. So on this 3 years and a couple of days anniversary, are we still moving expeditiously towards that goal? I'd like to observe the 19th month anniversary of meeting of two of you, in which I was assured George, meaning Dr. Alato, will progressively shift over 4 years to 8 to 8:30 high school start times. As we close out our second budget cycle into that 4-year goal, I'm curious where that commitment now is. Or if that wasn't really what Dr. Alato intended when he told you, some of you, that that's what he wanted to do. Later this year, the 2014 task force will observe its 4th anniversary. I can no longer believe that those cost estimates are truly accurate, and so that is why I couldn't come before you for the budget cycle or budget testimony, because I don't know how much to ask for. Until you guys ask Hbcus to use your transportation software to give you new updated cost estimates, I can't really use the nearly 4-year-old ones to advocate before you. Perhaps Hbcus could also give you some updated timelines that would meet your goals, whatever they may be. As you approve your strategic meeting later this, or strategic plan later this month, I'd like to remind you that your metric of increasing the percentage of students attending schools on a daily basis would be improved, but if you change that to later middle and high school start times, this is shown to improve attendance and decrease tardiness. Similarly, as you consider the slight decrease in overall graduation rates, I'd like to remind you that later middle and high school times have been shown to increase graduations, especially for two pithy quotes, one from Dr. Judith Onens, who was the lead author from the 2014 American Academy of Pediatrics recommendation and who had testified before this board several years ago, to do nothing is to do harm. And then, as I heard at the Annapolis Women's March last month from a speaker, inaction is not an option. So I look forward to your continued work on school hours. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Van Buskirk. Are there any other public comments? Okay. Items 4.01 through 4.06 are award of contracts. Do I have a motion to bundle these items?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor? Okay. Now, do I have a motion to move these items from information to action? All those in favor? Dr. Arlotto, your recommendation.
Yes, ma'am. I recommend the Board of Education approve contracts as listed on today's agenda, 4.01 through 4.06.
Okay. Are there any board questions or comments regarding these contracts? Is there any public comment? Okay. All those in favor? Motion passes 8-0. Okay. Item 5.01 is administrative personnel appointments, and there are no appointments for this meeting. Item 5.02 is personnel. Dr. Arlotto, your recommendation.
Yes, ma'am. I recommend the board approve the actions as stipulated on the attached sheets.
Okay. Are there any board questions or comments? Okay. All those in favor? Motion passes. Excuse me. Item 5.03 is an information to action item. Do I have a motion to move this from information to action?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor? Okay, Dr. Arlotto, your recommendation.
Yes, ma'am. I recommend approval of the strategic plan for the Anne Arundel County Public Schools. It's a 5-year plan beginning 2018 through 2023.
And we have a staff presentation.
President Homer, Vice President Gilliland, Dr. Lotto, members of the board, we're happy to be here today. For the record, I'm Maureen McMahon, Deputy Superintendent for Academics and Strategic Initiatives, and I'd like to ask my colleagues to introduce themselves.
Good morning. I'm Monique Jackson, Deputy Superintendent for Student and School Support.
And good morning. I'm Kevin Hamlin, Senior Manager, Office of Student Data.
So it is our pleasure today to return to seek your approval of our new 5-year strategic plan. As you may remember, on December 6th of last year, we presented the strategic plan to you. And at that time, based on public input and your thoughts, you guided us to make some small targeted adjustments. So let us now highlight the changes that we made.
Thank you. First, we'll review our driving values. As you suggested in December, we have reorganized the values, grouping them by theme, and added a value related to our business practices. Let's look at the website to see the results of the work. Please remember that relationships, rigor, and readiness is the overall theme of our new strategic plan, and this will play out as we address the edited values. You'll see that the first value, all means all, leads the list. Under this value heading, we have 3 value focus areas. All students, families, employees, and community members feel welcome. Diversity is invited, nurtured, and celebrated. The AACPS family fosters student growth. Our belief that student and employee well-being, and ultimately, they are key to elevating all students as gaps are eliminated. Rigor can be embraced more fully when strong relationships and positive communication paths are in place. Readiness is more easily achieved when the relationships between people, specifically adults and students, provide the foundation of learning. Our second value, Ready, Set, Launch, follows. Under this value heading, we have 2 focus areas. All students are prepared for college, career, and community, both inside the classroom and beyond the classroom walls. The second value speaks to rigor, formal and informal learning in the classroom, and through our many co-curricular clubs, programs, events, competitions, and other offerings. In the schools and in the communities, the relationships we have built between our employees, our students, their families, and our local businesses and organizations undergird and support the amazing opportunities for rigor in our school system. Finally, our third value, sound stewardship, speaks to our commitment to ensure that our AACPS business practices are designed and implemented for quality, effectiveness, and efficiency.
So we didn't only edit the values, we also addressed the indicators associated with those values. So you will see as we now move to the metrics page and click under indicators of success, that the indicators now fall into 3 main areas. Those related to relationship building, those definitely focused on academics, and those where the relationship building and the academics intersect, all linking to the relationships, rigor, and readiness for our students. This plan is about elevating all students and eliminating all the gaps, no questions asked. It was designed and built with significant public input over 18 months. We listened to the public, and we're very proud of the collaborative work. We're committed to readying our students, all 83,000 of them, socially, emotionally, physically, and cognitively to contribute and compete in the 21st century world in which they ultimately will live, work, play, and lead. We're very excited to be here today. At this time, we're happy to take any questions you may have.
Ms. Sasso.
I like it. Thank you.
Ms. Korbelak.
I like it too. Thank you for accepting our input and looking at how we could reorganize it.
That was good.
Are there any other board questions or comments? Is there any public comment? So I will echo, I like it too. And I appreciate all the hard work and the great emphasis on getting input from as many people as possible, so that they could all be brought in. So
definitely a team effort.
Yes, everybody coming in there. So now we have a motion on the floor to accept the strategic plan.
So moved.
Okay, all those in favor? Strategic plan is adopted for the next 5 years.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, team. Well done.
Good morning. For the record, Jeanette Ortiz, Legislative Superintendent for Student Support Services, and Karen Ziska, Director of Nursing, Bureau of School Health and Support with Anne Arundel County Department of Health. And so today we have policy JECB, storage and use of naloxone or other overdose reversing medication, before you for first reading. But before we discuss the new policy, I've asked Karen to provide the board background information on this issue, and this is information she has presented to AACPS coaches and athletic directors. So I will turn it over to Karen.
Thank you very much. Do I have a clicker?
That's all right. Your slideshow isn't connected to the clicker, but just let me know and I'll
Okay.
advance
I'll
for you.
go on with something. Thank you very much for having me here. I really appreciate it. As you know, school nurses are in the trenches and are in the health rooms. I have to say, when I looked at the stats, the number of health room visits for students coming in under the influence that we suspect under the influence of substance abuse in the last 5 years has doubled. Because of that, back in the fall of 2015, I started looking at, I wanted to put naloxone, which is an overdose reversing medication for opioid overdose, into every school in Anne Arundel County. I thought that would be a pretty easy thing to do. I'd look at the funding and just put it in the schools and develop a policy. What I didn't realize at the time is that our staff couldn't be trained because the state training was for known substance abuse users. It was not for pediatric population. And our population is very different because some of the signs and symptoms of opioid overdose mimic that of an opioid overdose, of chronic health conditions, certain chronic health conditions. So our staff needed to know the difference of when to grab an EpiPen for an allergy, glucagon for diabetes, Diastat for a seizure, or even an AED for a cardiac condition. So we went ahead, and the state, before I could put naloxone in the school, we had to develop our own training, and we had to become a training entity under the state's overdose response program. So that we did. And in March of 2016, we put naloxone in every school in Anne Arundel County. My feeling was what was in our state and in our county, I figured eventually one day would be in our schools, and I wanted to be prepared. I didn't want a child, unfortunately, to die or overdose or something in school and for us not to be prepared. So I put it in the schools. And there were a lot of counties, I have to say, that were very reluctant and didn't want it in their schools. They didn't think it was necessary. They thought it was a waste of money, and we'd never give it. And I spoke to Dr. Arlotto about it, and he said, go ahead and do it, Karen. Let's be proactive. So we did, and I have to say, 10 days after we put it in school, we gave it and we saved a life. A student came into the health room. Within minutes, she became unresponsive and she stopped breathing. It took the nurse 2 doses of Narcan to bring her back to life. Since then, we've given it 2 additional times. So a part of the role of the school nurse is not only the emergency care and responding to it, but it's also health education. So we work with the school counselors and teachers in doing health education and talking to students about substance abuse. We do PowerPoint presentations. Another piece of it, overdose in this crisis, is that we needed to get to student. So I developed this PowerPoint presentation, athletic directors and the coaches, and starting next week, athletes and their parents. So I'd like to go ahead and share it. What happened. So United % increase. 2014. Heroin, the blue line is heroin, the orange line is fentanyl. That, as you can see, it was steady, and then all of a sudden it spikes. And then in Anne Arundel County, where do we fall in the state? Surprisingly, Anne Arundel County has the third highest than Anne Arundel County. And where is this happening? From it. Now, it's funny, I sit on the county's Not My Child. Doctor says pretty much this is something for the pain. That's an opioid. So an opioid, if you go back one, is the list of them is right here. You'll see it's morphine, it's Oxycontin, it's codeine, Demerol, Percocet, Vicodin, but it's also heroin. Chart with Maryland, it had fentanyl and heroin. That's where the deaths are coming from. 83% of the deaths in Anne Arundel County is due to a combination of fentanyl and heroin. Now, fentanyl is given in hospitals generally before surgery and is 50 to 100 times more powerful than morphine. Now, carfentanil, you'll just start hearing that has come and been reported in Anne Arundel County. That is 10,000 times more powerful than morphine. We don't ever give it in a hospital because it's used for elephants and rhinoceroses. We don't give it. Go ahead. Now, how are opioids and heroin related? Well, they're chemically related. They interact on the body opioid receptors exactly the same way, so they get the same high. Now, the thing is, prescription pills on the street are very expensive to buy. Heroin is dirt cheap. So 80% of all heroin users started by prescription pain medications. Good, thank you. 2A pathways for addiction. As sitting in the Not My Child, I have to say I've heard two different ways, and research supports it. Gateway drugs, which is where they start drinking marijuana and they go into heavier drugs, or misusing prescription pain medication. Now, what's happening in Anne Arundel County? Every year, the high school students are surveyed. It's called a Youth Risk Behavior Survey, and ask them about their usage of tobacco, marijuana, alcohol. And you can see here, the last report we have, we don't have this, the results of everything yet, is from 2014, which correlates also, remember, with the spike from the state of Maryland. 27% of Anne Arundel County high school students reported using a tobacco product in the last 30 days. 52% admitted drinking alcohol. Almost 19% using marijuana. And here's the surprising thing. 4 years ago, over 14% had already admitted to using prescription drugs, medications, without a doctor's order. Now, adolescents nationally, 83% have unsupervised access to their prescription pills. And most of them, when they misuse it, they use it from their own prescriptions or their friends. Now, the stages of addiction is experimental use, to regular use, to risky use, to addiction. Adolescents go through those phases much faster than adults do. And the reason why is because their brain is still developing. It is not fully developed until they are 25 years old. Now, the problem with the thing with the brain is it actually develops in the back first, where their emotions are, and then comes forward. So the prefrontal cortex is the last thing to develop, which is your logic and your reasoning. And substance abuse actually disrupts the development of the brain, and it makes it more chemically deprived for them developing an addiction later in life. Now, when is an adolescent prescribed an opioid? For an injury or for when their wisdom teeth removed. So now, short-term use of opioids is rarely causes addiction. Long-term use absolutely has been related to it, and most long-term use come from treating acute pain. It was only meant to be given at a short period of time. Now, how long is it safe to take? Well, as a nurse, I can tell you a day or two. Absolutely, you don't need it more than 3 days, and never more than 7 days. Psychological addiction studies show start after the 3rd day. And this is a piece I want parents to know. So if their child is injured, you need to know what to do and how to handle it. Now, are there other options out there? Surprisingly, when I started to get into this research, I found that over-the-counter Tylenol and Motrin, when given together, is 50% more powerful and better at controlling the pain than an opioid. So the green line, the long one that you see, is the pain control they get from Tylenol, Motrin together, where the third one down is actually an opioid. So parents, I wanted them to hear this message. You can click on the next message. And this PowerPoint is on your website. It's under the athletics section. And here, I'm not going to go through all the dosing, but tells the dosing that this study found. But the biggest, most important piece of this is those two medications have to be given together, because separately, they're not as effective. Now, for injuries, I want to talk to parents just about resting an injury, ice, Elevate, putting an ACE bandage on it. Those things are all great to do at first. If it doesn't work, go see your doctor. Develop a plan. Talk about this injury. How long is it going to take to recover? Realistic expectations. The goal is not to be pain-free. Pain is actually a good thing. It is our guide. It lets us know that we are injured. We need to rest, not to overexert ourselves. It lets us know when we heal. It is our guide. It's our body way of telling us that we're injured and we need to take it easy. And as a parent, we need to know our options. If a doctor writes us a prescription for an opioid, say, hey, wait a minute, what else do I have? Is there something else I can take? What about Tylenol, Motrin first, and then let's work our way? And not 50 pills, how about 5? And then follow up with their doctor. Now, if you're given a prescription, I'm going to talk to parents about, for an opioid, find out about it. What are the benefits? What are the side effects? How long? Am I looking a day or two, or what am I looking? How long is he going to need it or she need it? And what are the warning signs? Because what if things aren't healing and aren't going really well? I also want to talk to them, which is so very different at this age group. A lot of adolescents, they're old enough to take a Tylenol if they have a headache, but not with an opioid. If they're given a prescription of a painkiller, the parent needs to hold those pills, they need to keep them locked up, and they need to dispense them 1 pill at a time. And if anybody has extra medication in their medicine cabinet, they need to lock it up and get rid of it. And parents, let me tell you, grandparents are notorious for having their medicine cabinet full of medicine. So I'm going to encourage everybody to go home, go to your parents' house, and get their meds too. And dispense them in a safe place. Every police department has dispenses that you can use medication and drop off these pills. I also want to let them know that there is a school nurse at every school, and I'm going to have the school nurses there so I can introduce them. If there's an injury, your child has surgery, reach out to the school nurse. She's a wonderful resource for you. She can work with you and your doctor in developing a plan of care, because they're going to need this so that during their recovery phase, they can come to school and have access. We have keys to the elevator, so if they're on crutches, they can use that. Because all of our goals for our students is we don't want any new users. And that's the whole point of this. So thank you very much for listening to me and for your time. I appreciate it.
Mr. Grannon. Mr. Grannon.
That was extremely informative. Thank you very much for that. I learned a lot. The slide that had the percentages of usage by high school, those were all within a parameter of 30 days? Mm-hmm. Okay. Do we have a sense of, do you think any of those numbers are actually being underreported?
I personally do. I think that I think for a student to sell, and that's just my personal opinion, if they're filling out a form, how many of them are going to be, honest and say, yes, I'm using, no, I'm not using. So I think you do have a percentage of students who probably are using it and don't want to put it down just in case that,
but
it's
the ones who actually reporting, 20% of high school students in this county are reporting that they've used marijuana in the last 30 days.
Yeah, and that's back from 2014. So that data is 4 years old. Yeah.
Okay. And about the naloxone, what's the protocol? What happens after you administer it? Does the student go to the hospital?
Yeah,
Do you notify the parents? How does that work?
Absolutely. We call 911 immediately, and we give the naloxone. And I tell you, the last time we gave it, we started to give the second dose as the paramedics were coming in, and they looked at us and said, yeah, you're doing the right thing. And not only after that, it was the paramedic turned to the nurse and said, do you have any more? Because she just gave 2 doses. And she said, no, now I'm out. And he said, let me go to my ambulance and let me give you 2 more doses of it. So he came and restocked our supply. I mean, I have more at the office, but so, yeah, that's what we do. We call 911. The parents are contacted.
Ms. Korbelak.
Sure.
I just want to thank you for educating the public. I know when this education piece started with the county, I had teenagers who were getting their wisdom teeth out. And had I not been informed, We were not allowed to leave the oral surgeon's office without them calling in a prescription for opioids. They would not even let us leave. And had I not been informed, I would have given them to my children. Instead, we went the Tylenol Motrin route, and all 4 of them were fine.
Yeah.
So it's important to get this message out, especially to our teens, our athletes, as well as anybody who's getting wisdom teeth out.
Absolutely. I had a few years ago had surgery, and I think they wrote me a prescription for about 100 pills. So it just is an important message, you're right, that everybody needs to know there are other options, and the goal isn't pain-free. You know, it's a good way for our body letting us know what's going on in the process of healing and recovery. So thank you.
Ms. Nally.
Again, I too want to echo the sentiments of my fellow board members. It was a wonderful educational. I enjoyed your presentation. My daughter is a head school nurse in a very small district in Mississippi, and they are experiencing, with only 6 schools, but they are experiencing this, and she's talked about this. I'd like a copy of your slide presentation to share with her if possible.
Absolutely. And I have to say, not only were the first school health services program in the state, but nationally. So myself and the Deputy Director, Aisha Austin, we went at a national level and presented this and shared our training and our policies and procedures with everyone. So it's actually even on the health department website, so your daughter can go to the health department website. She can see, I mean, I can share my PowerPoint, and happy to, but that is the training that we actually trained our staff with. So she can use that, and it has our policy, our procedures, protocol, everything is out there. I wanted to have everyone to have free access to it so they could implement it in their county. And I have been contacted by nurses in Michigan, West Virginia, North Carolina, all asking me about it because they want to do the same thing. They want to address and put it into their schools. So thank you very much.
Ms. Sasso.
Yes, can you tell us, as the policy was being discussed, what happens up school in a bus trip? And number 2, what is the storage procedure for not only Naloxone, but any other medicines in the school?
So we're going to discuss that because we have another policy that deals with the other medication. So I can get into JECB, which is the storage and use of naloxone or other overdose reversing medication, before you for first reading. So this is a new policy and accompanying regulation, which is in accordance with new state law that passed last legislative session. And so essentially the policy requires all schools to store and use naloxone and other overdose reversing medication in accordance with the state law. It also requires AACPS to notify parents and guardians of this new policy, which is also in accordance with the state law. And so the regulations provide the procedures on how we would store and utilize the medication. And so the policy will be posted online for 30 days for public comment. And if you have any questions, we can certainly, or I should say Karen can probably answer that for you.
Mr. Reinhardt.
Yeah, so Karen and Dr. Arlotto, how does AACPS fall into the advocacy with our local healthcare providers of educating them not to overprescribe?
The health department has sent out packets of information and has communicated with healthcare providers, but that's a part of it. I know the hospitals are now too, but that's a part of it, getting this message out and talking to oral surgeons. And the health department is doing it, as well as hospitals and as well as the county executive is. But, I'm not sure. That's why I think it's important for to talk to parents about it, so we equip them with the knowledge, so if that we missed a healthcare provider or a healthcare provider didn't read the information, they can at least go in there and be equipped with themselves to advocate for themselves, to say, hey, I'd rather have Tylenol Motrin. Let me try that first for my child.
As I think we've heard from fellow board members about the just our own personal experiences and anecdotally with friends and neighbors of coming home with bottles full of pills. And in my own case, I recently broke my collarbone and was sent home from the hospital with a bottle full of oxycodone. It went straight to the police department.
Yeah. That's exactly what has to happen. And some people don't think that, you know, when you go to a pharmacy, even though they write you a prescription for 30 or 50 pills, you don't have to get it filled. You can tell them, I only want 5 of these. You know, you don't have to have the whole thing filled. Or you can hold on to this prescription. Just try Tylenol Motrin first. A lot of people do not realize that that actually is more effective because it's over the counter, so you think it's weaker, but it isn't. So thank you for sharing.
So, yes, thank you. This is wonderful. I love that we're being so proactive to reach out to the parents and to the athletes, and I'm encouraged to see this policy coming forward. And so, Ms. Sasso.
Can we have that into our radio programs that go out? Like basically like an interview, or run this as an interview on our radio programs that we put out the interviews?
Yes, we've not developed a radio for crab radios, what you're referring to. That we have our AACPS radio station run by our students, directed by students. We could certainly put together a program piece that we could record and play. We also have the opportunity to, if you've not yet been interviewed by Teresa Tutor on AACPS TV, that's another way that we could begin to get the word out. But the bottom line here is thank you, Karen.
Sure, thank you.
Karen, I've had a number of conversations over the years. She is on the forefront of this, and she came to me several years ago, and there was no reason why we shouldn't do it, other than there was some fear in the public that we'd be admitting something that it didn't really matter. We need to work to save our students and and we've had adults on campus also. And so I thank you for that. If it's no surprise to you, while Karen is not a member, an official member of our team, she's absolutely on speed dial. And so she's there with us every step of the way. So thank you.
Thank you for the partnership. I appreciate it. And I'm even thinking that maybe back to school night, having a flyer or have something out to let parents know, because this is such an important message, because we just need to do something with this epidemic, and we don't need any more users. We need to save our children. Thank you.
So, are there any other questions or comments on this policy? So it will be going out for comment, and it's and I'm actually through the health department tomorrow. They do offer Narcan training, and so I'm going tomorrow to get Narcan training so that I can learn the show. I hope I never have to use it, but I'm hearing the stories that would be helpful. So I encourage people to look up the health department website for more information. So.
Great. We also, the Division of Student Support Services is also bringing policy JEC, administering medicines to students, before you for first reading. This policy was last revised on February 6, 2006. The updated policy clarifies when staff may safely administer medicines to students, and also clarifies that the administration of medicines shall be in accordance with school health guidelines and Maryland state laws and regulations. The policy will be posted on our website for 30 days for public comment, and we can answer any questions you may have.
Are there any questions or comments on this policy? Okay. All right. So that is all of our first readings. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you again.
Okay. Item 5.06 is an action item. Gifts, bequest, and donations policy, DCA. Dr. Arlotto, your recommendation.
Yes, ma'am. I recommend board approval of policy DCA, subject to final correction for style and format.
So moved.
Second. Okay. Are there any questions or comments on this policy? All right. Is there any public comment? Okay. All those in favor? Motion passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Item 5.07 is items of legislation. This is an information to action item. Do I have a motion to move this from information to action?
So moved.
All those in favor? All right, Ms. Ortiz.
All right, so I have one bill before you today for vote. It's House Bill 679. Public Schools School Year Completion Date. As we all know, in 2016, the governor issued an executive order which required schools to start post-Labor Day and end by June 15th. And as we've experienced in other school systems around the state, we've experienced a calendar crunch. It's been very difficult to schedule our school calendars within that time frame. So this legislation being introduced by our delegate, Pena Melnick, would allow for the flexibility by authorizing schools to close no later than the third Friday in June. And so therefore the third Friday in June would change every year in accordance with the calendar. So on the years that Labor Day starts a little bit later, June, the third Friday would be a little bit later, and really allow for that much needed flexibility that school systems are lacking at this point in time. I do want to point out that we have almost 70 co-sponsors on the legislation, and so there's a lot of support for this bill, and so I am requesting that the board vote to support this legislation.
Mr. Reinhardt.
Thank you, Madam President. Are there currently any other bills addressing the school calendar floating around?
Yes, so there are two other bills, really one bill in cross-file, so there's a House version and a Senate version. Delegate Mark Chang has a legislation which would allow schools to basically waive 5 days without having to go before the state board for an official waiver. I will say that this legislation was introduced last year, and there were concerns raised by the committees that a school would be able to go less than 180 days and without going before the state board, just having that blanket 5-day automatic waiver. And so with this House Bill 679, the difference is that we would still have to meet the 180 days. We just have a longer time frame at the end of the calendar. I do want to point out it does not touch the post-Labor Day. It just deals with the end of the school year. And so it would just allow school systems the flexibility to meet those 180 days.
And as we saw for today, we have, as of today, multiple of our counties have already used all their snow days.
Correct. That is correct. It's affected counties around the state. I will say that the Maryland Association of Boards of Education supports this. PZAM supports this. There's a lot of support within the legislature. We've reached out to the governor's office, and I've met with his staff to discuss and hoping that they would also support it as well.
So, are there any other board questions or comments on this legislation? Is there any public comment? Okay, all those in favor?
I have a question.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Grana, I didn't see it.
And what did the governor's office tell you when you met with him?
So I met with the governor's office. They did not give me, a yes or no that they would support, or they did say they don't publicly oppose. So typically the governor's office does not, this governor's office does not take position on bills unless it impacts their state agencies directly, and even then they may not submit testimony. But what I am hearing through the grapevine that there is a lot of general support for this legislation, and so our hope is that what I've requested is that, if the governor doesn't want to actively support the bill, that he would, if it were to pass through the legislature, that he would not veto it. So that's our request. Of course, we would love for him to support it. We feel that this legislation truly is within the spirit of the original executive order. That year, June 15th, was actually the third Friday in June, and so we feel that this is consistent with the executive order. I've followed up again with staff to kind of circle back on this. They have a lot of education bills this week, so they're a little tied up, but certainly I will keep those communications open with the governor's office and update you.
All right, any other comments? All right, all those in favor of supporting this bill? Okay, all opposed? Okay. All right.
And the remaining bills are Section 2 bills, which are just FYI. Most of them are local boards of education. And then Section 3, which is legislation that is covered under our legislative program, and so therefore do not require a vote.
Okay. Ms. Corbelat.
I just had a quick question. One of the bills that was under our legislative program that didn't require a vote last time we met was Senate Bill 92, the Maryland School Overcrowding Act of 2018. I wondered if you had any updates. We've been approached by the bill's sponsor, a couple of us have, about MACO supporting it with amendments. We wondered if you had any information about that.
So this bill, we opposed it because it would essentially create sort of a new entity to allow for innovative school design to kind of circumvent the current process and state laws and regulations. And so we had some serious concerns about the legislation. And in addition, we have currently the 21st Century School Facilities Commission, otherwise known as the NOT Commission, which Alex Sheknovich is a member of, that has not endorsed this legislation. The commission has not endorsed the legislation. And so they are also looking at innovative ways for public school construction. And so we just had concerns with the legislation. We felt that it did not necessarily meet the requirements of, innovation, and certainly concerns with circumventing state law and regulation. The bill hearing was last week, and so the bill has not moved. There's no update on the bill. It was opposed by Maryland Association of Boards of Education, MABE, BZAM, other school systems. And I did hear that MACO is supported with amendments. I have not seen those amendments, but certainly I can request them and share them with the board.
Yeah, I'm just curious. I know the bill sponsor has indicated that this is just another tool in the toolbox, and that MACO is now supporting it with amendments. So I was just curious what those amendments were.
Yeah, I can certainly get a copy of those amendments, and perhaps those amendments address our concerns. MACO didn't share that with us, or I'm not sure if they shared it with MABE in advance of the bill hearing, but I will look into that and follow up with you. Yeah, no problem.
All right. Are there any other questions or comments on legislation? Is there any public comment? All right. Thank you, Ms. Ortiz.
Thank
I know
you.
You're working hard. Right. Item 6.01 is a review item. We have a staff presentation on recruitment, retention, and workforce diversity.
Good morning. I am Jessica Hbcus, Executive Director of Human Resources. I have the pleasure to introduce the panel up here. So we have Ms. Shanika McKenzie, our Workforce Diversity Specialist, Dr. Dawn Lucarelli, Regional Assistant Superintendent, and Mr. Bill Goodman, Senior Manager for Human Capital Management. I am thrilled to sit before you today and share a review of our 2017 hiring season. We have some good news to share regarding both recruitment and retention of educators in our school system. As of October 8th, Anne Arundel County Public Schools hired 571 Unit 1 employees for vacant positions. This is a 20% decrease in the number of teachers hired versus that same time last year, and reflects an overall increase in teacher retention. It is also worth noting that of those hired, 23 were Anne Arundel County Public School employees working in other capacities who became certified teachers. 61 of our new hires completed their student teaching internships in Anne Arundel County Public Schools, and 142 of our new hires, nearly 25%, were graduates of Anne Arundel County Public Schools. As we continue to value diversity and recognize the enrichment and benefits diversity brings to our students' educational experiences, we are excited to report that approximately 22.6% of our new teachers were diverse, and 17.3% were male as of October 8th. While this is a slight decrease in the percentage of males hired at 1.5%, it is a 4% increase in the diverse new teachers when compared to the same point last year. This increase in diversity is even more significant as it represents the largest percentage of newly hired diverse educators reported since these updates began in 2009. Now that I was able to share some highlights, I will turn the presentation over to Ms. McKenzie, who will discuss some of the efforts that contributed to our recruitment success this past hiring season.
Good morning. AACPS recruitment staff attended 35 college and teacher ed job events during the 2017-18 recruitment season. Nearly 25% of the events attended were diversity-focused job fairs or visits to colleges and universities with higher proportions of students from underrepresented groups. We extended over 188 open contracts to strong candidates in order to secure their employment with our district. Top diverse applicants and high-performing student interns were specifically targeted. 96 of the candidates who were offered open contracts accepted positions with AACPS, which is 51% of total offers. 33% of teacher candidates who accepted our open contracts were also diverse applicants. HR representatives proactively reached out to principals to help identify highly qualified student interns to offer these open contracts. With the assistance of dedicated staff in the Office of Workforce Diversity, we contacted nearly 900 diverse teacher applicants applying to positions in our district. During these calls, candidates were informed of missing information in their application profile, scheduled for interviews, and encouraged to participate in upcoming teacher recruitment events. On April 1st, AACPS hosted our Teacher Diversity Job Fair. Held at North County High School, the event was attended by nearly 120 applicants and over 60 AACPS schools. Teachers eligible to attend our Diversity Job Fair must fall into one of the following three categories: educators from underrepresented racial and ethnic groups, male educators professionally certified in elementary or early childhood education, educators of all races certified in hard-to-fill areas such as mathematics, chemistry, physics, technology education, special education, and worlds and classical languages. In May, we once again held our annual Teacher Diversity Recruitment Weekend, which invites candidates from across the country to our district. Attendees of our Diversity Weekend must meet the same criteria as those who attended our earlier job fair. Candidates who attended this weekend event had the opportunity to visit AACPS schools, network with administrators, and explore our community. At the culmination of our Diversity Weekend, AACPS held our Teacher Recruitment Job Fair. This job fair was open to teacher candidates in all subject areas. However, priority in scheduling interviews were given to those who attended our Diversity Weekend event. Nearly 200 teacher candidates attended this event. Although our Diversity Recruitment Weekend has assisted in our recruitment efforts, we believe that our Teacher Diversity Job Fair provides our school system with a greater opportunity to connect with potential candidates earlier in the year. In addition, it is much easier for many applicants to participate in the one-day event than in a multi-day event. Therefore, we have decided to forego a Diversity Weekend for 2018 and redirect those funds during some other recruitment efforts, including increasing the size of our upcoming Diversity Job Fair. In June, AACPS hosted a recruitment event in San Juan, Puerto Rico. Nearly 50 teacher applicants were interviewed during this two-day event, and several attendees were ultimately hired for positions within AACPS. During the summer months, AACPS hosted 2 diversity networking events for candidates who had completed the application process and were eligible to be hired by our principals. These candidates were able to mingle with principals that had current vacancies during the 2 one-hour meet and greet events. Nearly 30 candidates and over 20 schools participated in the events. In addition to the aforementioned efforts, HR also launched a new applicant tracking system effective February 1st, 2017. The HR Navigator allows candidates to submit an application using mobile technology and provides more searching features for both our HR recruiters as well as our principals to allow them to find the best applicants for their positions. HR Navigator also provides AACPS with the ability to post jobs nationally to the School Spring Teacher Job Board, which helps to increase our organization's visibility. In June, AACPS also launched a new website and new recruitment web pages. The new recruitment website is easier to navigate, provides more information pertinent to applicants, and demonstrates our organization's commitment to diversity. Upgrades to our systems allows AACPS to better attract millennial job seekers who are accustomed to the latest technology. We are continuing to grow our social media presence on both Facebook and Twitter, and are actively using these sites to share information on AACPS jobs, programs, and to promote upcoming recruitment events. While AACPS will always strive to identify innovative ways to enhance our recruitment, we will also continue to utilize the recruitment methods that have been most successful. On November 29th, we once again hosted our So You Think You Can Teach information session for career changers interested in pursuing a second career as a classroom teacher. Nearly 70 candidates participated in this information session. On March 3rd, we will host our second annual Teacher Diversity Job Fair. This year's job fair will be held at Severna Park High School. Moving the job fair to Severna Park will provide a larger venue and will allow more candidates in all AACPS schools to participate. Given the success from our first trip, AACPS will hold a second recruitment event in San Juan, Puerto Rico in March of 2018. HR will continue its partnership with the Office of School Performance, which has been instrumental in our recent success. We are greatly appreciative from the support of this board, Dr. Alato, and the executive team in our efforts to increase the diversity of our district. In addition, all HR staff receive training from the Office of Equity and our county's current District 203 initiative. Here to discuss our partnership with the Office of School Performance is Dr. Dawn Lucarelli, who is also a member of the Workforce Monitoring Team.
Good morning. As a member of the Workforce Diversity Monitoring Team representing the Office of School Performance, my role is to ensure regular communication with the other regional assistant superintendents so that our initiatives make their ways into the schools, and I bring the school's perspective to the team. In doing so, we've been able to actively support our county's goal to increase diversity and retention. This year, each regional, as part of the supervisory visits with principals, included questions relating to diversity and retention. For example, principals were asked, how do you promote the need to value of diversity with your staff? And what structures and support do you have in your school to ensure all employees feel welcomed, supported, and part of the team? This has led to rich discussions and conversation and action that keeps diversity top of the mind for all of our school leaders. It's also our expectation that principals attend the upcoming diversity job fair, and we've changed the lens from hiring at each school to hiring for our county. Our office and principals also participate in many of the diversity-related events. Each semester, our office holds an Aspiring Leaders cohort, and we include Human Resources as part of that class. We've also invited Human Resources to take part in our regional cluster meetings and have engaged in multiple book studies with our principals around positive leadership and creating a welcoming culture in our schools. Finally, our mission in the Office of School Performance is to relentlessly grow, develop, and support our school-based leaders. We all go about our mission with a purposeful lens on diversity and retention. I will now turn the presentation over to Mr. Goodman to discuss employee retention.
Good morning. In 2015-16, overall turnover in Anne Arundel County Public Schools was 10% compared to just 7% during the 2016-17 school year. Teacher turnover was also 11% at the end of the 2015-16 school year and has been reduced to 9%. We attribute the district's focus on strengthening school culture attribute our strong Right Start Advisor program as another reason for lower teacher turnover. Step increases awarded to a majority of employees is likely to have also impacted greater employee retention. In a shows that Anne Arundel County Public Schools second year. There was a significant increase in the retention of minority certified educators when compared to the previous year when retention was 78%. There was a slight decrease in the retention of non-minority staff which was 89% during the previous year. Retention of minority and non-minority conditionally certified staff was 62% and 72% respectively. These numbers are down from the previous year when conditionals including principals' ability to find fully certified candidates, candidates' decision that teaching is not their career of choice, and candidates' failure to maintain requirements to remain on a conditional certificate. We are continuing to engage our current for the third who most likely did not complete a teacher education program and may be stepping into the class parent communication. The first workshop was held in November and was attended by approximately 40 teachers. Hbcus hosted on February 6th. We continue to host network with an opportunity to spend time with colleagues outside of the classroom. Our networking event held in October was attended on the 30th. Hbcus hosted a leader ready to lead. Learn about the qualities Hbcus desires in potential administrators, as well as employees, of which approximately 30% were. It's been to provide you with some strategies Hbcus uses to recruit within our system they interact with every day. Studies have shown that positive experiences unconscious implicit biases and promote cross-cultural social bonding. And we continue to strive to build a culture where diversity is embraced and all employees feel welcome. And we're happy to answer any questions that you may have at this time.
Mr. Gilliland.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you, everyone, for this. And I know that there's just a tremendous amount of work and effort that goes into putting reports like this that I'm about to make, but I don't want that to overshadow the positive aspects of this. My criticism is that we were given a report very similar to this last year, same format, and what I had asked for when we were comparing minority to non-minority and males to females was what was the number of minority males versus number of minority females. And I still think that that is a tremendous gap. And I as I said last year, I probably didn't say it as bluntly. What I have a concern about primarily in the North County area, and then when they see an African-American male teacher, that's the only African-American father figure they see. When some of those students see a Latino male teacher, that's the only Latino male father figure that they see. And I would really like to know how our recruitment is relative to African-American male teachers and Latino male teachers. Because, again, minority versus non-minority, I think these are great statistics. And from 2016, 2017, 2017, 18, we're trending up, so that's positive. The male versus female, pretty flat line, but, again, it's good to see that. I really would like to know the number of minority male teachers that we're recruiting, because, for reasons that I just, have said, but I just can't underscore the significance of that enough. That's important.
And while we did not bring that statistic today, we do have that data. We just didn't provide it in this report. I can tell you that when we talk about males overall being a lower number, when you look at minority males, it is a significantly lower number than that. And that is a challenge that is across the board, in that we are finding fewer minorities going into teaching, but significantly fewer male minorities going into teaching. And so we are trying to address that gap by some of the different efforts, such as our career changers workshops, trying to find different ways to pull people in, because we're not finding many males in traditional teaching programs. I think one statistic says about 40% of the males in teaching are at the secondary level, and the rates are just abysmal at the elementary level. Like, we're just not finding men wanting to go into that level, and when they are, they're trending more to high school because they have opportunities to do other things such as coaching, which allows for more money. And just for those factors as well as others, it is a constant area that we are continuing to try to work on because we're just not finding the numbers, which means we have to look at more innovative strategies and possibly look at ways to pull people into the profession that aren't doing so through just going into a traditional teacher education program. But we'd be happy to send you those figures specifically at the end of this presentation.
I appreciate that. One other thing that I should have said as a second preface is that I don't believe this is an AACPS HR problem. This is a higher ed problem. But still, I just think having, these data points is extremely helpful. So I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Mr. Granin.
Thank you for that informative report. I didn't see Howard University on the list of college job fairs that you all go to.
We have not gone to their job fair, but we have been working with them in other ways. For example, we've done some things with the school directly where students from Howard have actually come to Anne Arundel County to do some things and learn about our programs, and we're actually going to be participating in a spring retreat they have that's outside of their job fairs. We have found that a lot of the candidates, when we were going to the job fairs, didn't really know who we were, so we weren't getting a lot of traffic, so we decided to back up and maybe form a better partnership in terms of kind of going to the campus before the job fair events and kind of building our notoriety on their campus. And so we're doing that in non-traditional ways. So we're not necessarily going to their job fairs, but we are still participating and working with their students and have contacts within those campuses.
Well, given its proximity, couldn't we do both of those things? I mean, it's just in D.C.
Well, what, if I could add, so one of the things, along with Ms. McKenzie, Dr. McMahon and her team have begun a partnership with Howard. One of the things that we've seen over time is that the Howard Ed students, we've had a difficult time. It's been about transportation. They've not been willing to go from D.C. and their ed programs out to us to do internships and be part of our professional development schools. So we're trying to overcome some of those barriers, but we've begun conversations with the dean of their ed school about ways we can partner with some of their master's and PhD candidates that we're visiting, not just in teaching, but some of their counselors and social workers. And so we're looking at trying to expand that and bring them into the county. One of the things, the barriers, you say the proximity, it is close relatively, but does an undergraduate ed major have the ability to get out here to work in our schools and internships? That's been part of the difficulty, but we are starting to develop some of those relationships again with Howard University.
I appreciate that. That's why I'm suggesting that maybe we should go to them, since it's such a low ask for us to go to their job fair.
Yeah, absolutely, we can. And just through that partnership with Dr. McMahon, we've actually already given out 3 open contracts that are signed for Howard University grads for next year. And we actually hired one today this year who already had an open contract for next year. So that partnership is definitely coming along, but I completely agree.
Yeah, so I hope you'll consider that
Absolutely.
for their next one. A follow-up question. How many teachers did we successfully hire that actually came and started here from Puerto Rico?
We offered 7 teachers open contracts and 5 accepted and are currently working in our schools.
How many people do we send down there for that?
We send a team of 4.
Okay. Do you have a sense of what the cost of that is?
It was roughly around $6,000 last year, and it was covered by grant funding.
Grant funding. Okay. I'm just wondering, are there other places where the yield of Spanish-speaking educators or soon-to-be educators might be just as high at a lower cost, like New York City or Miami?
We have tried both of those areas. We haven't found as much success because they can find jobs there. We found that in Puerto Rico there is more of a desire to come to the States, and so therefore in our first effort, which was in the summer, which really is way after the recruitment season, the main recruitment season, the fact that we had 50 people coming out to want to interview and actually were able to offer 5 people jobs was actually quite good. And then we realized that if we were to start going earlier, like other school systems in the spring, we might be able to even yield larger numbers of people that are actually looking to come to the area, looking to relocate. Sometimes in New York and Florida, because there are so many schools, a lot of people want to stay within those communities.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Sasso.
I would like to thank you first for going to Puerto Rico. That is very good. But at the same time, if you know the situation in Puerto Rico right now, there was 1,100 schools and 300, the governor ordered them closed. So if you can get there as soon as possible to get those 300 people. But at the same time, there was a STEM teacher, male STEM teacher in Puerto Rico that contacted me, and I sent you the email. So I just hope you got it and that you grab him before he goes. Because I think he was in the military, so he's very fluent also in the English language. And one of the things that I would recommend, I don't know who were the 4 people that went, but I hope you go with somebody that is from Puerto Rico.
Yes.
Because there are certain areas in Puerto Rico, and just an advice, that I have gone and spoken to the people. Let's say the observatory in Puerto Rico, the scientific observatory, the people who basically give you the lectures and take you around, they're teacher students, and I spoke with them, and one of my questions was, would you love to come to the United States when you finish teaching? And their answer was yes. So those are the people that you can grab them before any tourist areas where they have translators. See if you can get to them, take a couple of tourist trips, and then just recruit them. And there's some park rangers too that are really, really good to recruit, because obviously they speak fluently different languages. And one of the questions that I would say, because I was speaking to the 4 girls that came from Puerto Rico that were at Fort Meade, and one of the things that I think you can look into is basically housing, because it is really crucial when you get people from there over here. And it could be, I'll help you in that since I'm a real estate broker, but I know that when they come, no, the fact is, you cannot sell them a house and you can't put them into a rental. So you're going to have to basically work, how can you put them together so that the cost of living is basically less for them? Because it really is an issue for them. I don't know how it could be solved, but that's something you can look at. And then this one you can laugh. If you have an empty suitcase, I'll go with you. Yeah, that's it.
Mr. Reinhardt. Yes, you have to follow that.
Wow, there's so much to unpack there. Pardon the pun. Okay, so I'm gonna go way back to Mr. Gilliland, asking about diverse male candidates and diverse males currently working in the system. I can tell you anecdotally that in my time at North County, I was proud to hire the only African American male working in an academic capacity at the school that year. That was quite a surprise for me, but it was clear as soon as Mr. Harris started with us, his classroom was flooded with impromptu meetings and chats from our students who were just waiting to have a person who looked like them in the building. That leads me to that we offered 188 open contracts, 96 accepted. So with those open contracts, am I correct in understanding that with an open contract, teachers can be placed where there are openings anywhere in the district? Is that a correct understanding?
We would allow them to participate in the interview process and see if there's a match. Absolutely. The last thing we would do would be look to place anybody with an open contract.
So as part of that interviewing and perhaps ultimately a placement, what are we doing to place diverse or encourage diverse candidates to go into schools where diversity is incredibly low, and yet the neighborhood is incredibly diverse?
So I think that's the partnership with the Office of School Performance and the regionals involving the principals. As you noticed, the question during their meetings at their school level is not only what does your staff look like, the demographics of your student population, but also how are you supporting people when they come here. And that would be everybody, obviously, but especially diverse candidates in schools that there are not a lot of diverse educators there.
Right, because I'm looking at the charts on page 5 in the document that we were provided, and although we hired, if I'm correct, approximately 22% diverse candidates this school year, we're still looking at a 13.3% diverse teacher workforce. That's not representative of our population nor the kids in our system, and we're chipping away incrementally, but you know, when you have 500 hires in thousands of employees, that percent's going to creep up slowly. So anything we can do is going to be a huge help. So you mentioned in your presentation that you're looking for methods that are best practices that we know work. And one of those that really stood out to me was that 10% of our new hires this year came from existing interns within the system. So that we were able to grow those interns, get them comfortable in our system. So what are we doing as a system to not only increase our possibilities for internships, but specifically with our HBCUs?
Yes, that's a twofold question. We, with the interns, we look early on to see where they are in their school in a manner from like dealing with the principal or anybody else who can give them a recommendation. We've been super aggressive the last couple of years with trying to hire them into our system. As for increasing that level or number of interns, that's something we've been working with Dr. McMahon's office on to try to look at really broadening PDS schools and trying to figure out a way to bring in more interns. But you're exactly right. If we can get in and meet them early, so an example would be the graduates from the end of this semester we have reached out to. We had a special sub-processing here to get them employed in a temp status and try to work them into schools to get to know, you know, the culture of the building and see if it was a good fit for them in different places.
So specifically interns from HBCUs.
So we have a relationship with all of the HBCUs. I visit their campuses 2 to 3 times a year, specifically to talk with their interns. So even before they come to Anne Arundel County, and even the ones that don't come to Anne Arundel County, because the reality is with the PDS system, most interns are split from a college between multiple schools. So we're only going to see maybe 3 or 4 or 5, depending on how big the program is. So our goal is to, yes, build a relationship with the ones that are in our building, but also let the ones know that aren't coming to our schools, hey, we're still here. We still want to have you as a part of our system. We're still encouraging you to apply. We're also very aggressive with principals in that within the first 6 to 8 weeks of the internship, we're reaching out to the principals and saying, hey, tell us who your rock stars are. Tell them who's dynamite, because they're going to be really the best people to let us know who should get an open contract, who should be moving on quickly because another district is going to snap them up. That's how we partner with our schools to determine where are our strong interns. During our visits as recruiters, we try to visit those interns' classrooms, make sure they know who we are, make sure that they've applied online to our system. So we're trying to do as much as we can to let them know that we want you here. We know you may not do your entire internship here, but before they leave, we want to make sure we have some interaction with them. And those who are extremely strong, we try to make sure they don't leave us without receiving an open contract if it's warranted.
So we also saw some statistics of once we have the candidates, they're hired, they're now teaching. We're doing good work here in eliminating what we could call a retention gap between our minority and non-minority candidates. I'm on page 7, chart 1, or chart I, excuse me. And so it's certainly in 16, 17, we've really chipped away at that. So we all know about Right Start advisors and what they're doing in the building. What are we specifically doing to see these results that are specifically geared to retaining our diverse candidates, especially our new teachers?
I can speak to that as far as school-based leadership. I can tell you that, as I said in my presentation, my piece of the presentation is we have been working very closely with principals in cluster meetings about the power of positive leadership. You win in the locker room. Books such as that to build cultures in schools that are welcoming. The other thing is we have been directly helping each other come up with strategies of how to support our diverse candidates and the employees that we've hired. For example,
receiving an open contract if it's warranted.
So we also saw some statistics of once we have the candidates, they're hired, they're now teaching. We're doing good work here in eliminating what we could call a retention gap between our minority and non-minority candidates. I'm on page 7, chart 1, or chart I, excuse me. And so it's certainly in 16, 17, we've really chipped away at that. So we all know about Right Start advisors and what they're doing in the building. What are we specifically doing to see these results that are specifically geared to retaining our diverse candidates, especially our new teachers?
I can speak to that as far as school-based leadership, I can tell you that, as I said in my presentation, my piece of the presentation is we have been working very closely with principals in cluster meetings about the power of positive leadership. You win in the locker room. Books such as that to build cultures in schools that are welcoming. The other thing is we have been directly helping each other come up with strategies of how to support our diverse candidates and the employees that we've hired. For example, I have a couple principals that meet with them regularly. What do you need? How are things going? Particularly in our larger schools? Because you're right, a Right Start advisor may be in a building twice a week, or there may be someone there full time. The other part is we do have a liaison at each school that helps new teachers, the building teacher liaison, the new teacher liaison in each school, that builds relationships with all the new teachers and supports them, tells them where things are, makes them feel welcome. It's all those unsaid norms that people need to learn, and we help them with that, make them feel comfortable and welcome. So we've done a lot with that over the last couple years. We've increased our efforts and have been purposeful about doing so. So helping each other with strategies and what's working, and we see principals implementing those every day. The other piece of that, each of the regionals mentor possible diverse candidates for leadership position as well. So we've also talked to principals about look around your school for leadership opportunities and think beyond the assistant principal role, but as DCs, as your leadership team, are they representative of your school community? So we've also undertaken a lot of those conversations as well to make it very, like I said, at top of the minds of diversity in our schools and what our teams look like.
Great, and thank you for anticipating my next question about what do we do to grow leadership opportunities for our diverse teachers. Let's see. So we certainly realize with the current low unemployment levels how challenging it can be to attract talented, let alone diverse candidates. So one of the things I think Anne Arundel County can really be proud of is how many homegrown teachers we have here. How many folks grew up in the system and stay in the system. What are we doing to continue to encourage our young people here in Anne Arundel County to pursue education as a viable career?
Actually, it's a great question. That's been one that we've talked about for years, and working with even the community college and looking at the bigger picture of getting kids hooked early if it's something they're interested in to try and get them into the profession, or the potential down the road for possibly putting them into situations to expose them to see if it's something they'd like to do. But I agree with you, the homegrown piece for us is huge, and we would love to see it kind of continue to grow within the county, because I myself am one of them, so I totally get it.
Okay, I think that concludes all of my questions and comments. Thank you.
Ms. Corbelette.
Thank you all for all your hard work. I just wanted to know, in your opinion, what could we, all of us, do to turn more of those offers into acceptances?
I think for all of us, it's about touch points. If you can connect with somebody and there is some type of relationship there, that seems to be the key right now to recruiting. We have a national decrease, and you've heard numbers all over the place, people going into the profession. So it's really about getting them early, connecting with them and following up with them. So really that's what we could all do, I think, as a group. As for accepting the open contract, I think Dr. Arlotto said it a couple years ago that, everybody has choices in life and teachers are no different. And in this case, if you're really good, then people want you. And so our goal is to show how good we are. We know how good we are. So to show that and to try and connect with them and get them to come here as much as possible.
Are they turning us down because our salaries aren't competitive?
In some areas, that is a challenge in some of our harder to fill positions. But I think Mr. Goodman really hit it home in where we use other strategies when our salaries aren't where we want them to be. Mm-hmm. However, as he mentioned, we do feel that our retention piece in our better numbers this year are related to our step increases that teachers received last year.
And from the perspective of the diversity job fair, we had 2 job fairs last year. Again, you have principals there, and so I'm coming as a candidate wanting a job, and I get to meet with multiple principals. So now I'm getting to not only connect with people, but to see if that vision or this vision is something I want to be a part of. So that seems to be another, if we can get in there early, it seems to be a really good way to kind of get around some of those other things.
Mr. Reinhardt.
And one more.
Okay.
Sorry. We've seen a lot of this presentation of the time we take in the spring of doing our diversity recruitment efforts. Are we going to repurpose any of that money from the weekend that we're now rearranging to look at off-season, such as a late fall diversity fair, in order to encourage our winter grads?
That is something we could look into. We do have recruitment events in the fall, so we do visit campuses in the fall. We have not, I think our first venture into that was our graduate event for our interns that were graduating. So that was kind of like a baby step in that direction of looking at how do we start doing more events to capitalize on those interns that are coming out, or those people that are graduating in the December timeframe versus just the spring. So I think that was like our first step, and that we're hoping to look at doing more of those types of efforts.
Thank you. Thank you. I know how hard y'all work all year long. It's nice to see that overall turnover is down in Unit 1, and that we're kind of holding steady with the national trend of about 9-10% of the workforce turning over. And I know that's in large part because of what y'all do to recruit well and keep them here. And I'm going to throw in again, y'all need to go to UVA and recruit. Dr. Alato and I will be happy to take a trip down to Charlottesville and, bring some of our fellow alums here. So please add that to the
Put
list
that on
too.
the list.
So
That's the Curry School of Education, and it's in Charlottesville, Virginia.
just a couple hours down the road. Bring them up here. So, all right. Well, are there any other board questions or comments? Any public comment? All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Making fun. All right. Item 6.02 is a review item, award of contracts. Are there any board questions or comments on any of these items? All right. Is any public comment? Okay. Then that concludes. The next board meeting will be Wednesday, February 21st at 7 p.m. The next policy meeting is Wednesday, February 21st at 4:30 p.m. The board will be going into closed session for a short period, and then immediately following that, we will have the budget committee meeting here in the boardroom. So that should be in about half an hour or so. So, Mr. Gilliland.
Thank you, Madam President. I move that the board enter into executive session to discuss the appointment, employment, assignment, promotion, discipline, demotion, compensation, removal, resignation, or performance evaluation of appointees, employees, or officials over whom this public body has jurisdiction, or any other personnel matter that affects one or more specific individuals, and to conduct collective bargaining negotiations or consider matters that relate to the negotiations.
All those in favor? Meeting is adjourned.